All right, so here we enter into the great adventure of Aristotle. One of the things that comes to mind when we have a Platonic work and then an Aristotelian work is what kind of personalities might be attracted to one or the other if one gravitates one way to one thinker and not the other. In the Catholic intellectual world from which I come, Aristotle, of course, is the dominant genius, the great systematizer upon whom the scholastics worked. The Republic, Allegory of the Cave, the one who turned me on to the intellectual life. But then when I entered the Catholic Church, it was Aristotle and it was the scholastics. And then it's been in the last few years I've come back to Plato. And I'm trying to hold the two together because I think if one sees both Plato and Aristotle as representing the Socratic pathos in distinct ways, one can recognize the beauty of the complementary projects they're pursuing. I think that at least was the ancient consensus, certainly amongst the Platonists, that the Middle Platonists, the Neoplatonists thought of Aristotle and Plato as on the same page. It is the case that Aristotle is continuing the Socratic turn towards human affairs. This is distinct from the beginning of philosophy in the pre-Socratics, with the attention that they paid to cosmic natural philosophy, what we would now consider science, right? That science and philosophy were coincident projects at the beginning. The pursuit of an account of reality according to logos, something with logical control, shaping the account one gives of causality as opposed to the mythos, the mythological account of reality. Socrates changes the focus of the philosophical project to the human affairs. They're much more like the sophists, right? Concerned about how to live together, how should we live, right? And Plato and Aristotle obviously continue that. Aristotle in a different way, he's reintegrating the whole scientific project again because of his own background, his family background in medicine, his own personal it is clear his personal love for science, as we call it, the biological method, all of that he brings back in, but he never then resubordinates the political concerns. As we even see in the first book of the Nicomachean Ethics, the architectonic science is still the political art. And so he's still very Socratic in that sense, but maybe more complete as far as being able to integrate the scientific aspect of the philosophical revolution. In any case, what we have is something very different in style, obviously, from Plato. The dialogue form is so, I think, dramatically moving. It's so poetic. It's so awesome, certainly for a literary type to read. But there is this joy in reading a systematic account such as Aristotle's, which has such clarity, such insight, such profundity, I think, anyway, even though it's a much different experience. All right, I have a few things on the board just to kind of orient us. When we talk about the ethics of Aristotle, we're right in the midst of topics that are still the hot topics in ethical debate. We have the great debate between utilitarianism, right? Now you would say, and deontology, that is the duty-based ethics of Kant, that is either you're pursuing your good, utility, or the good of the greatest number, pleasure, however you conceive it, or you're going to follow the right rules. You're going to do the right thing. And the question is, does Aristotle have the same kind of tension, which, I mean, obviously is the case. On the one hand, he's clearly a eudaimonist, right? He's saying that at least following common opinion, the end of life is, or the thing we want, the telos, the thing we're going for, the good of our existence, what gets us out of bed in the morning is try to attain happiness. And that funny word is Eudaimonia, which is to have a good daimon. Again, a religious kind of concept that we have to keep in mind. To be happy, well, that would be good for me. And that would be the ultimate utility. So that's something we already know from Plato, right? What is truly good for us is whatever to contemplate what is. And that obviously is still in Aristotle too. So that would be a higher kind of utility that would integrate supposedly the lower utilities, the common utility of the way of the world, getting along in life, being successful enough to provide for oneself, have enough money to have food, shelter, clothing, so on, and to have enough pleasure to get by. So you see the kinds of friendships that Aristotle lays out based on utility, pleasure, but then he makes the argument that the truest form of friendship based on the goodness of each friend gets those lower utilities, as it were, back in, right? So Aristotle's trying to combine goodness, agathos, right, with, and I think he is, this is part of my sense of reading this, he's trying to pull that into the deeper level of what is being. So a good person is good and is good for another. So it's both a foot in the deepest realm of what is, but also reaches into the world with the utilities of the world. This allows him, I think, to have this very complicated discussion of friendship related to justice and the regimes, the different kinds of ways we order our political existence, the nomoi, the nomos, the law, the mores of a people. Well, that's obviously very much part of this world, and you have to have utilities that are coordinated to that. But then, of course, the whole philosophical quest from Fifth Thales on is to pair nomos back to phusis, to be able to do an analysis where you're getting something that is deeper than convention. Well, phusis, therefore, nature, would put us closer to being, maybe. So that's part of the complexity here. Is politics something that is deviating from being, or is it a circuitous route back to being? In any case, it seems to me that the utilities of the world involve calculation. And so you want to have friends that are good for you in the sense of being able to help you out, when you're in trouble, you need money or whatever. But then the truest friendship involves not calculation, but admiration. You see the other person, the virtues of that person, and you are in awe. You're contemplating something that is. So again, we're getting back to being there. So that's the question. How does utility and our desire to have things that are good for us, including friendship, which is one of the incomparable goods of human life, how do we balance that with our desire to be noble, to have something that, to recognize that I can't have a good human life unless I have something in me that's able to sacrifice my own good. So that's kind of the paradox that we see played out here. And I think friendship is a good way to try to, that Aristotle is bringing in for the reason it allows us some purchase on this paradox between the good and being. That discussion at the end about the friendship between unequals and how we might, in fact, not even, there's a limit to friendship in the sense that we may not want our friends to become too astonishingly virtuous, because that would make them more godlike. And the more godlike they would become, at a certain point, it becomes too disproportionate for a friendship to remain between us, right? Because it's essential. Of course, for a Christian, the whole goal being of this picture, the end, one way to describe happiness or blessedness is deification. And how much that might either maybe make sense of the concerns Aristotle was raising, or maybe present just a new way of approaching the question.